You're listening to Over the Oxer podcast with Tracy Cole for all things to do with the mind for equestrians. Today I'm chatting about imposter syndrome, and alongside that I'm going to use the power of your mind to change your thinking using some really nifty language techniques. So have a little listen. I was standing in line. Ready to declare my entry to the competition. I could see the other people up ahead of me signing in at the desk, giving their horse's name, giving their own name, apprehensive. You see, my card didn't have photo ID on it. Everybody else's seemed to do. And you really should have photo ID on your card so you can officially declare your entry. And every time I go to a competition, I have to explain to people that although there's no photo on the ID card, it is me. And I am a number 6. I'm a genuine number 6. And most of the time they believe me, but I just have that little embarrassment as I get up to the desk. I shuffle forwards and I get a little bit closer to the desk. And my nerves really start to go now. I can see other people around me, and glancing down, I can see the numbers on their cards. Some of them are 7s and 8s and 9s, and I'm stuck here because I'm just a number 6. I get to the front of the queue, and I explain to the lady behind the desk that although the photo is missing, it really is me. That is my name on the card, and I'm a number 6. I take a deep breath. And I wait for her to say something so that I have to argue my case. But it doesn't come. She says, actually, I can solve this for you. I can do you a brand new ID card. I can take your photo and I can put it onto the ID card, print it for you right here and now. Would you like me to do that for you? Oh my goodness, I am so relieved. I can't believe it. I'm going to have photo ID. I'm going to avoid all of these problems that I usually have. Because the thing is that I want to be a number 6. Because number 1, 2s and 3s, they have to park their vehicles miles from the ground. And I mean miles. And then they have to lead their horses miles with all their kit. They have to carry their saddles and their bridles and their grooming kit and everything else. And it's so difficult, so heavy. And if the ground's bad, they've got to trudge through mud. Oh, it's just awful. So I really don't want to be put in as a 1 or 2 or 3. And because the 4s, 5s and 6s, and I'm definitely a 6, they can park inside the ground. And it's just a little bit easier to do. I haven't quite got that trudge. I haven't quite got that amount of carrying to the actual showground. And yes, I've got to walk a little bit. And yes, there is usually some kind of delay because I am only a 6. And the 4s, 5s and 6s do have to make way for the 7s, 8s and 9s. Oh, I'd really love to be a 7, 8 or a 9. Oh gosh, they just have it so easy. I mean, this is the real VIP package. They've got experts, sort of like assistants come grooms on hand. Each person has one person allocated to them. And these assistants help you. I mean, they carry your equipment, they groom your horse until your horse is absolutely gleaming. And they also know how to clean all your tack, so your tack's gleaming too. I mean, your presentation of you and your horse is just A1. Yeah, 7, 8s and 9s, they really have it easy. And then the assistant helps them to warm up. So there's none of this trying to get in on your own, getting through a gate or having to move jumps or having to wait for somebody to finish in the warm-up ring. Oh no, the warm-up ring gets cleared completely if 7 or an 8 or a 9 walks in. But I am glad to be a 6 and not a 1, 2 or 3. The lady takes my photo for my new ID card. And I'm so pleased. And she types in the information and sends it to the printer. And I can hear the printer chug, chug, chugging as the new ID card is starting to come out. She walks over to the printer and she takes it out and smiles at me. And I smile back politely, but a little bit quizzical. So, imposter syndrome was first explored, if you like, in the 1970s, and then it was called the imposter phenomenon. And it was labelled as that because it was noticed by some researchers that women who earned PhDs, they got the papers, they got their theses and all this kind of stuff, still believed that they weren't that bright. And nowadays we've sort of coined that term imposter syndrome. And in a moment, I'm going to tell you why I don't like that term. I mean, I don't like imposter syndrome itself, but I don't like the term either. And so let's have a little think about just what is imposter syndrome and why it's important that we look at it. Well, many equestrians, in fact, many sports people, but equestrians in particular, feel like they're imposters, like they're frauds. And they often do this when they win, when they lose, when they move up a level, sometimes when they move to a new yard and the people on the new yard seem to know so much more or ride so much better. So it's really, really common. And just knowing that it's exceptionally common, even if people don't talk about it, most people, the vast majority of people, have experienced it in one guise or another. So it's really important to know that you're not alone if you're feeling this way at the moment. We probably all know how it manifests, but here's a few little pointers that anytime you do anything successfully, however you measure success, you consider it to be a complete fluke, absolutely by chance. You can't accept that praise if you do something well. You might smile, but you don't really take it on board. You think people are just being nice. It's really difficult for you to accept any positive feedback, especially if it comes with somebody being grateful or appreciating you or praising you. There's a deep fear of being found out, that you're uncovered, that you shouldn't be here, that you haven't qualified in some way, that actually you aren't quite good enough. You tell yourself and you tell others that you've no idea why you're here or how you got here, and that it's just little old you. You may also have a degree of perfectionism. So you have really high standards, and maybe you meet those standards and maybe you don't. And you beat yourself up terrifically if you don't meet those standards. So all of these descriptions have a few things in common. And to me, the way I see it is that I think of them as limiting beliefs. And I think that these limiting beliefs are ultimately based on a kind of fear. So when you're feeling this way, you know the characteristics, you know the patterns that you're running, but it's important for us to also know how to get out of it. Can you imagine? Let's say 90% of people feel this way, and some in silence and some not so silent. But can you imagine we all feel ill at ease, especially in our equestrianism? On some level, we all feel we don't quite belong and we're not quite deserving. Isn't that weird? So how to get out of it? Well, I think in a nutshell, if we think about our language, that's a great inroad. And the first thing that I'm going to mention is this word syndrome. So imposter syndrome. It makes it sound like there's something wrong with us, that we're a bit broken. And that's just not the case. People who have this imposter phenomenon, or whatever you want to call it, are usually really high achievers, even if they don't really think so. I want to think also about how you share what you're going through, because it can be very releasing to just say to somebody, I feel really uncomfortable because, and talk about how you back this claim up. What evidence, and evidence is in quotation marks, what evidence have you got that you're actually an imposter? If you can be a little bit kinder to yourself, show yourself the same compassion that you would a good friend, then you can start to release yourself from that perfectionism. And again, we can do this a little bit with our language. Very often we have quite rigid language when we're in this imposter frame of mind. So for instance, we might talk about must. I must get better. I should be better. We'll talk about lots of words that conjure up necessity. Necessity words are rigid and they're quite fixed. I mustn't go wrong. I should be able to do this. I won't be able to do it. Those types of words are showing that we've narrowed down our focus. We are not flexible and we're thinking in very much of a one-track train of mind. So could we open up our language and open up our thinking? For instance, could you, just in your imagination, could you deserve to be there in your imagination? Might you, in your imagination, be good enough? Could you act as though you do deserve this? Could you do that? Is there any possibility that you may enjoy this? Can you accept that this feeling that you have means that you've stepped up and you're progressing? And moving that language from harsh, rigid words to more open, flexible language of can or could or might. And even if you can't bring yourself to think of it in reality, think of it as imaginary, because the part of your mind that this is going into doesn't know the difference between imagination and reality. So it's kind of all the same thoughts. Can you do that? I'm sure you can now, and it feels better, doesn't it now? Well, the lady behind the desk is smiling at me. I'm not quite sure why, but I smile back, just to be polite, really. She says to me, I've been able to put the photo on your ID. I'm sure you'll be really pleased now. And I nod, obviously, yes, of course, I'm going to be really pleased. I'll avoid all of the problems that I used to have. But she said, there's something else. You've been reading this identity card the wrong way up because you've not had a photo to show you which way round it was. She slides the identity cards towards me, and I can see it's coming into focus. I'm not a number 6. I'm a number 9. I hope you've enjoyed today's episode. Take care, and I'll see you again really soon.